Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X-Men number 76, cover dated June 1998. The eye-catching cover here is drawn by Pollina, inked by Mark Morales, and colours by Liquid. The focus is, of course, on Maggott. The cover caption declares the tragic origin of Maggott, and the image itself is a really intriguing one. There's great use of foreshortening on the figure of Maggott there, and of course an emphasis with his body language on his loneliness as he stands atop this cliff's edge with Eenie and Meanie wrapping around his legs. And note too, the eye is drawn to his flat, almost concave belly, and that's going to factor into his origin story, as we shall see. So I'm going to open this one up because there are 23 pages of story and art to get through. We begin with a splash page. We've got the title of this particular story, A Boyki and His Dings. If that's how it's pronounced, that was one of the difficulties of Maggott's dialect. The South African expressions, not too many people outside of South Africa will be familiar with exactly all of the meanings of the things he was saying. And we see here that the story opens in the aftermath of the previous double-sized issue, and Dr. Cecilia Reyes is giving Marrow and other members of the X-Men a medical examination. So discovering something here about the bones that grow out of Marrow as part of her mutant ability, one would say, but it's more of a curse. And Beast here is consulting with her, and so there's going to be a bit of tension between Cecilia Reyes and Marrow, because Marrow is very much the archetypal teenager, very moody, but also, of course, her gripes are down to the fact that she is one of the mutants whose power makes her disfigured looking, marks her out different from ordinary humans, and that's factoring into her attitude a bit. So you can see here that there's aggro and tension between her and Cecilia Reyes. Beast comes in here to make peace. Gentle ladies, please. This is a place of healing. And of course, Maggott there is topless, so there's a bit of humour about that, especially when Cannonball arrives in, blasting into the medical room at the X-Mansion, and then he covers his eyes. Two sisters in the house my whole life, and I still forget to knock first. So Beast has a little bit of fun at Cannonball's expense, and of course Maggott there is, or not Maggott, but Marrow teasing Cannonball, go on, open them, corn cob, open your eyes. So he refuses to, and Beast leaves him to it. And then the scene switches to 2 floors above in the attic space of the Distinguished School. So up there we have Maggott, and he's listening through the floorboards at what's going on below. Sounds like Marrow's seriously turning them uphill, girls. Good, he says, with her causing a ruckus and Storm out on errands. We should be able to skip out on this round of medical nonsense without a hassle. And then he sits up against the wall and says, even though I am still in a bit of a dwal, whatever that means, from our little interdimensional walkabout, no one examines us what don't want to be examined. Ag dolls, he says. So he doesn't want a medical examination because that's going to reveal something about the nature of his mutation. But too bad for him. Wolverine drops through the window, the rooftop window of Storm's attic, and he says, we've noticed that you haven't been eating with us. Hope this doesn't blow your timing. And Maggott replies, Wolverine, how did you find me? And he says, a guy who pals around with 2 odd-smelling slugs doesn't stand a chance of hiding from a sniffer like mine. Now, I've made a comment before in previous review videos of Joe Kelly's writing of Logan concerning this particular phrase of his, sniffer. I don't think that is a phrase that Logan has ever used before, and it doesn't sound right for him. But even as I say that, I'm reminded that I didn't go through the creator credits on the splash page. So here they are. Joe Kelly writer, Matt Broome, guest penciler. So Matt Broome, of course, an artist who started his career on X-Force after Greg Capullo left. He did a few issues of that. and then moved over to Jim Lee's Wildstorm Studios and did work on Stormwatch and other titles, including Wildcats, X-Men crossover, The Dark Age. And the inkers for Matt Broome's pencils are Sean Parsons, with some assistance from Aaron Sowd. Liquid on colours, Richard Starkings, and Comic Craft on Emerson Miranda on the digital lettering. So let's get back into the story here. Wolverine says to Maggott, "You have your own room for privacy. You're dodging something up here. Like, why is he up in Storm's attic loft?" And Marrow replies, "And if I am," Logan says, "if you are, that's hardly the way a new addition to the family, ex-family, ought to carry himself. It's bad form. Worse, it might lead a body to doubting your integrity. And we already been down that road. Fess up, kid. Why are you trying to skip the physical? Scared of needles?" And so Maggott says, "No, I don't dig doctors. It's a long story." So we're going to get his origin story. But something else I want to note before moving on from this page is it seems to me that Matt Broome is delighted he's getting an opportunity to draw Wolverine. And so that could be the reason that he draws him in his uniform, so to speak. Another maybe more story-based reason could be, of course, Wolverine goes on, has his own title, is on many solo missions, and he could just be returning from one of those. So it's either or in terms of the reason why he's in his uniform when everyone else is in their civilian gear. So Maggott takes off his glasses and he says he'd rather not tell a story. Wolverine lights up a cigar. "You gotta trust someone in this joint sometime, because in this business," he says, "secrets in the field get people dead. Now, you don't got to start with me, but I'm here and it just so happens my calendar is open. Think about it, but think fast. Aurora hates it when I smoke up here, and I don't want to risk a lightning bolt in the nether regions for nothing." So Maggott laughs at that and he says, "Have you ever been to South Africa? Northwest Transvaal specifically. Wide open plate land, sky-kissing earth. The view alone is enough to die for, especially where I grew up, just on the fringe of a little dorp," that's a village, I know the meaning of that word, "called Ottosheep." So nice work here, the framing of the panel for the flashback to Maggott's youth by Matt Broome, and working in this flower motif as well, the antelope there on the plain, and then the wooden hut that will turn out to be Maggott's childhood home. So let's turn the page, and here we are. So we're back in the past here for these images, but Maggott will be providing a first-person narration of his past in the narrative captions here. And he continues telling his story to Wolverine, and by extension us, the readers. And this is something I appreciate because very often, and in particular in the case of Scott Lobdell's run on Uncanny X-Men, and of course also when he was writing the X-Men title 2, the adjectiveless X-Men title after Fabian Nicieza and Mark Waid's departure, you would always get these mysteries about new characters that would never be fully resolved. And it's about time now that we have Maggott's origin story. The question is it the origin story that Lobdell and Joe Madureira, the character's creators, had in mind? Or is it something that Joe Kelly has come up with? In any case, let's get into it. So Maggott continues, "I can't believe 7 people fit in that house, 5 of us being stroppy runabouts most of the time. But we managed, we thrived. Our house was an hour's walk out of town, an hour's drive from the closest source of apartheid aggression." So of course, South Africa, when Maggott was a child, if he's about 20 years old, it would have been an era when apartheid operated in the country. And we get a editorial explanation of a policy of segregation and political and economic discrimination against man. Well, specifically black people. It's kind of a strange explanation there, but in any case, Maggott continues with his story. There's his brothers there. His eldest brother is a photographer. Remember that for later. But he is the weak one. He's the lame one, the sick one, the burden, he says. I was 12, but my size, you'd think I was younger than Daniel, his younger brother. I couldn't keep down solid food anymore, and even juice was starting to taste wrong, he says. The doctors shrugged their shoulders and called it stomach cancer. I should have been so lucky. Dad was a rock as long as I knew him. I never heard him complain a day in his life. Mother didn't say much, at least not with her mouth, but her eyes. They wouldn't shut up. It's interesting that Maggott's mother's hair is white, rather like Storm's, and then continues. So he continues with the story. Here in the States, folks, we're just starting to learn that South Africa was more than just a glittering diamond field. It was ugly, corrupt, and being eaten alive by the cancer of apartheid. So the doctors think he has stomach cancer, but this is the social cancer of the country. My family was under similar attack, but I was the one devouring them. My father worked like a dog, whacking away in the gold mines for the Tom money, I suppose, to support us. But by the time we paid for doctors and medicines and the special protein gruel that fed my belly, there was nothing left for anyone else. I was killing them. Mom finally said something. So she's praying there, please don't think me evil, but please take him soon, spare him, all of us the pain. So she's worried about the painful death he would have if it was indeed stomach cancer that was affecting him. And so he continues and says, I figured just 4 boykies were just as good as 5 if one was a cripple, and decided it would be my last night in that house. Next day I climbed into the family jeep. Thank God I remembered the trick to starting the old wreck and went off to answer my mother's prayers. But who's this in the back that he doesn't know about as he drives off into the desert? Unfortunately, he says, that wasn't the last time I set out to kill myself. So we're only going to find out about this first time. It also wasn't the last time I'd royally buggered the job either, he says. The Jeep had enough petrol to get us to Pretoria, if need be, but we never used it. Summer for emergencies, Dad would say. This qualified. Petrol enough to reach Pretoria was enough to get far into the Kalahari Desert, far enough away to bake to death without hearing my mother cry. So this is really a traumatizing origin story. Of course, his brother there, his young brother Daniel, has been sleeping in the back of the Jeep. It was a habit of his. He didn't check, and now both of them are dead unless something changes. When it finally hit me what I had done to that perfect child, I wanted to cry. Nice sequencing in panels here as they start in silhouette. Start to come closer. Daniel falls on the ground. His brother's there helping him, trying to get out of the desert, but they've gone in too far. But there was no water left in me. Greedy sun had left me dry, he says. It took less than an hour for the heat to donner us to a complete stop. I felt blisters rise on the back of my neck, but my mind was stuck on an inescapable truth. I'd kill Daniel, and I'd go straight to hell for it. Of course, what I didn't know at the time was that I'd sinned so badly that the devil himself would make a special trip to Africa and pick me up. And this is going to be the explanation of a moment in Uncanny X-Men 350 where Maggott gets sight of Joseph and says something to the effect that Joseph is a friend of his, an old and important friend. So now we're going to get the explanation of that moment here in this origin story. But the scene switches to Salem Center in the present, and Storm is there at the post office to collect a huge bag of mail. And she's thinking to herself here, amazing, these last months have been utter chaos for myself and the X-Men, but something as mundane as a bag of mail puts it all into perspective. So simple, names on letters intended to be read not by a band of outlawed mutants, but by real people, friends, some all too absent, Scott and Jean, Kitty, Kurt and Peter, and there you see the one name, Remy. Remy, she says as she picks it up from the ground. Gambit's name has practically been banished from our language, but to see it in print, she thinks, though I find it difficult to forgive him, I miss him so. How did everything change so drastically, so abruptly? And now the postmaster pulls down a package, one we've seen in previous issues, making its way from Africa to the US. And Storm notes, by the goddess, this one is for me, from my homeland. And then we're back in her attic with Maggott and Wolverine saying, go on with the story. So who is it? Who's the devil in the desert? Well, of course, it's Magneto. And again, I'd say Matt Broome was delighted to be able to draw Magneto. I'd say he was one of those like me who came to appreciate Magneto primarily by way of Jim Lee's rendering of him in Uncanny X-Men 274, 275 and Adjectiveless X-Men 1-3. So I'd say he enjoyed this opportunity to draw the Master of Magnetism in all of his grandeur. And Maggott continues with his story. Daniel will recall that he looked like an angel, a seriously ticked off angel who donned the devil's robes. So again, we have a sense there of the two sides of Magneto, angel and devil, warring with each other for his soul, I suppose. I don't know what I thought of him, says Maggott. Just remember that he was big and his eyes, those eyes, they didn't look at you or even through you, they dissected you. You may have heard of him. Oak by the name of Magneto, Master of Magnetism. I found the strength in me to drag Daniel all of 3 feet before he spoke. When he did, I thought my heart was going to stop beating on the spot. So Magneto speaks. Children, he addresses them. He says to himself, what are children doing out in this God-forsaken wilderness? So Daniel's brave. He tells Magneto to stay away from his brother. At Daniel's raspy words, his eyes fell upon me again, but softer this time. Maybe he sensed it then, what I was, or maybe he just saw a child in pain. Either way, he came to my side with a cool touch, like a breeze, and I wasn't scared anymore. So he's there begging with Magneto to take care of his younger brother, which gives us an insight into his essential heroism and good nature. And Magneto appreciates it. Such thoughts are, but because he thinks he's going to die, Magneto says to him, such thoughts are not befitting a boy your age. So all the hairs on my neck stood on end, says Maggott, and for the first time in years, my stomach didn't hurt. In fact, nothing hurt. It was a miracle. So he asks Magneto, did you cure me? Are you an angel? And Magneto pauses for a second, and then he says, I'm no angel, child, just a man. I eased your pain, son, that's all. Now relax. I'm going to try and help. So Maggott explains here that Magneto uses his power to stop his nerves from registering pain. It felt like laughing gas at the dentist's, he says, and I can only guess that it made what came next a whole lot easier. Now this is strange. We've never seen Magneto's powers used in this way in order to numb or switch off pain. There's Daniel watching what Magneto's doing to his brother with his distended belly there as well. That's an important detail. And then impromptu birthday party, Transvaal style. I felt like I was watching a bioscope, one of those horror flicks that lot liked so much, except it was my body on the screen with crystal clear sound, and that sure wasn't fake splatter. So out comes Eenie and Meenie for the first time from his stomach. Needless to say, we were all a bit put off by the whole thing. Half by the fact that 2 giant slugs had just popped out of my gullet, half by the fact that they closed the door behind them and left me alive. So Wolverine there just is taken aback by the fact that this all happened to him when he was 12 years old, and then tells him to go on. I don't remember much from that night besides the feeling of peace, says Maggott, and the whispering. Words all night long, as if Magneto were trying to make up for lost time. Most I didn't recall the next day, but the important ones. Mutant, Homo superior, persecution, domination, they sunk in, especially mutant. Next day, I woke to Daniel's voice. I still felt a little babellous, so it took a moment to register that my skin had turned blue. Mutant. Before I could ask Magneto what had happened to me, I saw what Daniel was yelling about. Magneto understood it all well before I did, I think. He probably stayed up all night watching them, observing. These things, whatever they were, had only one life function: to eat. So they've eaten that antelope, and when they did, I got better. I felt strong. They were so small then, new, helpless, and I was terrified of them until he spoke more words. Do not be afraid, Japheth. These creatures are a part of you, perhaps the best part of you. They are your birthright. They make you special. They define you. They give you power. I was still all doir-macar over what had happened, not to mention scared out of my mind, he says. Turn the page. But I rolled with it. What choice did I have? Best I could, I accepted these wriggling, slimy things. Hence, the beginning of a love-hate affair to rival Romeo and those Capulet twins. Right, girls? We waited a few hours until I felt well enough to travel, and then we did so. Like gods. Magneto took his time, long enough for me to get over my fear and start to groove on it, enjoy the benefits of being a mutant. And you can see he's turned back to his normal skin colour and tone. He spoke again of our kind and how I could enjoy true freedom by his side. All I had to do was follow his lead. But there was something in his voice that rattled me. That same acid the Afrikaners had when referring to me and mine as we passed on the pavement. Elite contempt whenever he spat out the word humanity. That was the moment that I suspected there was more to my angel than met the eye, but I had no idea just how much until we got home. So the home is burning, the wooden house. What is going on? Let's continue. The revolts against apartheid finally got violent, says Maggott. Finally spread to our safe part of the world. Troops looking to squash resistance before it could start attacked Otto-Shoop. Did a bloody good job of it. Mother and Da thought that the Breckers had Daniel and I. She was so shocked to see us that she didn't even notice the man in the cape. Couldn't speak for 5 minutes for the tears, but when she did, she says, Lot, they were too many. Lot is. So that's his older brother, the photojournalist, or at least, what would I say, like amateur, wannabe photojournalist. He was taking pictures, and 4 armed soldiers arrived and put him to death on the spot. I didn't hear anything else, though, she continued. Da had gone into town looking for revenge. My father, a holy man in his youth, fighting. And Lot, of course, dead. So Magneto now is there talking over his shoulder. Well, mutant, are you going to cry or are you going to do something about this? So off they fly into town. There's his father. He's been held up by a couple of soldiers. And Maggott calls down to him, Da, look out. Help him for God's sake, he says to Magneto. No, never for God's sake, Japheth, only for yours. You would have me rescue your father? So he exclaims yes, and Magneto asks him by any means necessary, even if it means. And Maggott replies, I don't care what you do to those jackals, save him, please. So this is a devil's bargain, a Faustian pact. Let's see exactly what Silver Age Magneto does. Well, he unleashes on the soldiers. As you wish, young mutant. Welcome to the struggle. That's a good line from Joe Kelly. It was the most abhorrent thing I've seen in my life ever, says Maggott. Men lifted from the pack, at first confused, then screaming as it hit them that their bodies were no longer under their control. Then the popping noises. The iron in their blood was forced to a central point, crushing bone, bursting organs, tearing flesh. My town had become a slaughtering pen, but that wasn't the worst of it. So the worst of it was how some of them cheered. And Magneto says here, they are animals, little one, and we are their keepers. He said we. I didn't know what to do. He had saved my father, destroyed my enemies, but we? Is that who I am? And so he exclaims, he's just a child. No, not we. You could have just stopped the soldiers with your powers, but you're no better than they are. Magneto gives him a pass. He says, foolish child, don't you know you are weeping for animals? And Maggott replies, don't say that. They're people, not animals. If only I could still believe that, says Magneto, but time and experience have taught me otherwise, as they will you one day. Know this, Japheth, I forgive you the folly of youth and the false hope of innocence this time, but heed my words. Human memory is short. Those who cheer you today, tomorrow will hurl stones. When they do, when you're branded outcast, seek me out, and together we will face the world as brothers, and we will overcome. Then he was gone. It was all so much, the noise, the smell of victory and blood and sweat. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, just wanted to rock up into Dad's arms and hide somewhere warm and safe. I wasn't the only one in need of shelter. So this is interesting, the offer from Magneto, because my guess is, and because I've forgotten what's coming up specifically, but my guess is Magneto's out there in the present. Once again, this Silver Age version of him, going back to issue 350 of Uncanny X-Men, it's been revealed. And so that offer is going to be made to adult Maggott, and we'll see how that pans out. So Maggott continues, my mind had been open to the issues involved with being a mutant. My body was about to follow. The sounds that came out of my mouth didn't even sound human, but amidst the crowd's noise, no one even noticed. So here's the explanation of why he never eats with the X-Men. Why I never graze with you guys, hey? Why the sight of food makes me twitch? Why I run to the lab 5 times a day? It's because I don't have anything to eat with except Eenie and Meanie. They are my mutant power, my entire digestive system given form. When it's time for them to pass what they've eaten along to me, the energy I need to live. So you can see there how hollow and concave is his actual belly, with Eenie and Meanie kind of crawling around his stomach. And in they go. They chomp their way back in. Get it? He says. Somehow they seal the hole behind them, but it still hurts like no one's business. I feel them inside me all the time, Logan. And he's turned blue again, wriggling, squirming, their jaws snapping. Now you know what I live with, why I don't want to see the doc, and I guess why he's attempted suicide subsequent times to that original attempt going out into the desert. So this is Maggott kind of painted as a tragic figure, a figure enduring pain and cut off from normal human conviviality, because normal human conviviality is most particularly associated with the meal table, breakfast, lunch, dinner, etc., etc. And he's not part of that. He can't sit down and eat a meal. So Logan says, yeah, kid, now I know all about it. There's more to tell, worse, much worse, but it's so hard. So Logan says, that's enough for one day, plenty of time to hear the rest. And I like this. We get an origin story. We know what his powers are. We know how they work. Okay, there are other mysteries for another day, but this is satisfying rather than the way that it was for a few years in advance of this, where it was all mysteries for different characters and no actual satisfying information. So here we go. Storm returns to the X-Mansion. She sees Maggott and Logan in her attic, wanting to know why they're there. And there's a bit of banter about things, including Logan smoking his cigar. And then we get to the point of that package that she picked up in the post office. And when she opens it up, there's a statue inside that speaks. Aurora, goddess of the plains, you must come quickly. A great evil has defiled our village, one that threatens the entire world. Your people are dying, Aurora, come home. My daughter, come home. Only you can stop Ananazi. And then she exclaims, or she says rather, ain't it? Mother. So next issue, Storm and company face the terror of Ananazi, and the Psi War begins. So that's got to have something to do with Professor X, we'd rather think. So to wrap things up, very nice artwork by Matt Broome for this particular issue. It might be pertinent to mention that Matt Broome is himself black, and I wonder, is there any connection then to his being chosen to draw this particular issue of Adjectiveless X-Men, given that the focus is on a new black character who has joined the X-Men, and of course the location of the story, South Africa. It could just be coincidence. There might be a little bit more to it than that. So it's just a question of speculation. And there's one page of letters here. Nothing terribly interesting in them. Next issue, the X-Men journey to Africa to face Ananazi. I remember this film. I remember watching this film, but I can remember absolutely nothing about it whatsoever. So there you go, just a random point there. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Adjectiveless X-Men number 76. Great cover. Adam Pollina was doing some excellent work over on X-Force. In this era, I do have those issues. I will get to them in due time. The tragic origin of Maggott. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.